and the phase after accession, because we know that there is today, and I was previously in charge of structural funds, is usually a steep increase between the money being available for pre-accession financing and the structural funds afterwards. And in order to soften this, so to say, transition, our proposal is to have a kind of phasing in and a kind of phasing out, so that the gap between the pre-accession and the phase afterwards is not that much that it is today, also allowing a country to accommodate with challenges dealing with European rules and procedures. So I think all in all, it's a package which should help all the 6 countries to make progress towards the European accession.
I'm afraid that we have to leave it there because we are hosted by the European Parliament. The next speakers are coming up. My apologies to our colleagues in Brussels, but I hope the technical briefings will compensate. Thank you all for your presence. Technical briefing here at 4 o'clock. Huh?
Technical briefing by who? Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. We will continue a little bit longer here. I do not have really too much to add to what you have heard from the High Representative Mogherini and Commissioner Hahn, but I'm ready to answer more Albania-specific questions if you will have. Before that, just let me recapitulate the main messages. First, it has been 15 years ago that the Commission has issued a strategy for the region. It was in Thessaloniki 2003, and now it is time to renew the mutual commitment, to provide additional energy and impetus to the process, and use this momentum to really speed up the reform process in the entire region. You have heard that strategy also spells out the 6 flagship initiatives that are designed to further support the transformation of the Western Balkans. What is very important to understand, this is a regional strategy. It looks at all Western Balkan partners across the board, both scrutinizing the deficiencies, but also identifying opportunities. It very clearly identifies priorities for all countries in the region, regardless of the technical stage in their contractual relationship with the EU. Those priorities, I firmly believe, are also shared by citizens in the region, who demand EU standards when it comes to the rule of law, respect for fundamental rights and good governance, including fight against corruption and organized crime, and strengthening the functioning of democratic institutions. Here, there are some very important messages for a need to ensure the constructive dialogue across the political spectrum, with governments ensuring that the opposition has the possibility to fully perform its role, and for the opposition to engage constructively in the democratic process. Other equally important priorities are strengthening of the economy, but also good neighborly relations and regional cooperation. There is also a clear message, and you have heard it, that in this process, countries have incentives to support each other, because it will be very difficult for one to run very fast if some others are not even walking. Therefore, it is important to keep in mind that the mentioned timelines are only indicative, and the speed will depend solely on the real progress in each of the countries. But it is one and the same process. It's based on choices of values and commitment to implement them through policies fully in line with EU standards. European Union itself is also taking on further commitments that are expressed in the upgrade of instruments that will be available to partners in the Western Balkans. I know that today the focus will mostly be on political messages, But I think in the coming days, we really need to carefully explain the whole new package that is being offered as reinforced partnership with the region, from a new investment guarantee scheme to new mobility and education, and inclusion in transport and energy EU decision-making process, to name just the few. You know that country-specific reports will be published in April, but I still want to extract few additional important messages for Albania. The strategy makes clear that Albania has a real and immediate prospect of moving forward to opening accession negotiations, to repeat the words of High Representative, in the coming months. Also, the process does not put any artificial speed limits on country's progress. More reforms you implement, the sooner you will reach the goal. In that sense, Albania did a very smart thing. It front-loaded major parts of chapters 23 and 24 through a very comprehensive justice reform. It means, in very simple words, that Albania has already done a lot of advanced work and has gained time for the future. So if it keeps the same focus and speed, it will be able to quickly catch up with other negotiating countries when its own negotiations start. So my concluding message would be, let us go back to work even harder. This is a very important spring for Albania, and this is just the very first event of many to come. Let us look at the new instruments and opportunities, what they provide, and make best use of it. And finally, let's work together to make the everyday life of every Albanian citizen safer, better, and more prosperous. This is all very doable. It requires always even more commitment, more dedication, and allow me to say, in the end, a little bit more love. Thank you. So, you don't have to do that. I'm open for questions. I just need to switch this on.
Përshëndetje, Merita Haklaj, Top Channel. Zonja Vlahutin, edhe zonja Mogherini foli që këto muaj do t'jenë muaj kthese për vendet e Ballkanit Perëndimor. Megjithatë, për Shqipërinë, duke pasur parasysh që është një klim politike që ka dominuar me tension gjithë të periudhë të muajve të fundit për shkak të zbatimit të reformës në drejtësi, mënyrës se si ajo po zbatohet, duke pasur parasysh shifrat e larta të azil kërkuesve apo situatën me trafikimin e drogës dhe të krimit, sa është rritur skepticizmi i vendeve kryesore të Bashkimit Evropian si Gjermania dhe Franca apo dhe Hollanda lidhur me perspektiven e Shqipërisë. Atë që presim në prill është ndoshta një rekomandim për hapjen e negociatave për antarësim, apo është akoma shpejt për të folur për këtë? Faleminderit.
You know that it's too soon to speak about it. We have to wait for the recommendation to come out. And you also know that the decision is made by the member states, and the decision, the first possibility for that will be in June. So in that sense, we have to be a little bit more patient, but also use this time very constructively, both on the part of the government, but I would also say on the part of the opposition, to get together around one goal that is same for all the Albanians, and that is to forward the country towards the membership of the European Union. So in that sense, I have used the last sentence to say we need more dedication, we need more work, but we also need a bit more love to work for the goal that is, I think, shared by everybody in this country. It is a very important moment. I think unity is very important, and this should be something that everybody takes care about. And everyone is responsible for.
Vladimir Lame nga televizioni Klan Plus. Kohët e fundit, por dhe më parë ka patur disa kritika ndaj jush, le të themi, ose akuza nga ish-kryeministri Berisha, se ju jeni treguar një anshme në implementimin e reformës në drejtësi, si një farë instrumenti për të larguar nga politika disa nga pjesëtarët apo drejtuesit e opozitës aktuale në Shqipëri, si dhe për mos prononcimin tuaj për azil kërkuesit apo për kultivimin e drogës në Shqipëri, që përbëjnë po ashtu problematik me disa nga vendet kryesore themeluesit Bashkimit Evropian që i përmendi kolegja më parë.
I think you have not been listening well. We said it many times. And more than that, we worked quite hard to tame both problems. And the last year, Guardia di Finanza has, for the first year in many, concluded that there were, I think, around 90%, but this was Guardia's assessment, less plantages. We will wait to see this year what happens with that. On asylum seekers, we have been constantly engaged with all our partner countries. So there is quite a huge amount of work that has been done. And let's see the report in April and see what colleagues from the institutions in the EU, but also member states, will conclude.
Ola Mitre, Televizionit Skan. Komisioneri Jam foli për një rialokim fondesh prej 500 milionë euro për vendet e Ballkanit Perëndimor dhe sidomos për ndërmarrjet e vogla dhe të mesme. Diçka më konkrete në lidhje me shpërndarjen e këtyre fondeve?
Now, unfortunately, it's also premature to be very concrete. What we are all looking for is an increased possibility to contribute to different growth-related activities. You know that connectivity agenda is something that requires quite a lot of funding, and we have been working hard to get a guarantee fund that would be used for this purpose. Also, it seems that it will be possible to use it for investments, etc. So there is a lot of thinking being going on on how do we additionally really support, because it's not, of course, enough to have good ideas and to have good plans. You also have to have financial means to implement them. What is extremely important, a number of these strategies are strategies not only for this yellow part there, the future stars, but you see that the Western Balkans are surrounded by EU member states. Therefore, when we talk about connectivity agenda, it's also connectivity agenda for the EU, because the space, the territory is between EU member states. Therefore, the investment in a number of these sectors is not just investment for the Western Balkan countries, it's investment for the European Union as a whole.
Zonja ambasadore Verezdi dhe televizioni Ora News. Si e shikoni ju pjesën në strategji, pjesën kur flitet për Shqipëria? Çfarë do të bëjë Shqipëria konkretisht që të hapen negociatat?
I think in that sense it's very clear. It's been very clear for many years. There are 5 key priorities, and for us these are absolutely fundamental. We are working every day to collect more evidence on track record, and this is something that is then being very severely scrutinized and discussed in different institutions, as I said, in member states and European Union, so that the Commission can come up with its opinion, but also that member states can make an informed decision. So basically, you know what the 5 key priorities are. Huh? That's public administration, that's justice reform, that's fight against organized crime, that's fight against corruption, and that's human rights, human and fundamental rights.
Zonja ambasadore, ju thatë pak më përpara që nuk mundet që një vend të vrapojë dhe tjetri të mos ecë. Duket sikur kemi një lloj ingranazhi për të shkuar bashkë këto vende, 6 vendet e rajonit drejt Bashkimit Evropian, në mos në 2025-ën, kur të mund të garantojnë ato të ardhmen e tyre në BE, por a mund na bëni një krahasim të Shqipërisë me Serbinë dhe Malin e Zi sa i përket pikërisht kapitujve 33-34, që kanë të bëjnë me shtetin ligjor, pasi ju shpreh se Shqipëria në këtë rast ka fituar kohë në rast se hapen negociatat e saj.
I am ambassador in Albania, and this is what I'm responsible for. What I know is that the work on justice reform has also covered a huge amount of work that will be required to be fulfilled in chapters 23 and 24. This was a very ambitious and very smart investment on the part of Albania, that it, as I said, front-loaded a lot of content, and therefore in the future will be able to save considerable time working on chapters that are crucial. I don't know if it's known for everybody, but the technology of negotiations is such that if a country does not have considerable results in chapters 23 and 24, it cannot close any other chapter. So theoretically, you can open all chapters but close none if there is not progress in the rule of law. And this is a very, very, very important instrument, and I hope that by even more additional efforts, Albania will be able to benefit from the investment that it has done already prior to opening of negotiations. Your final question.
Ju keni asistuar në reformën drejtësisë. Sot që ka nisur implementimi i saj, është ajo reformë që ju keni imagjinuar dhe keni dëshiruar, pasi opozita, kryesisht opozita, akuzon se në të gjitha institucionet kryesore të reja ka gjyqtarë dhe ish gjyqtarë të komunizmit, por edhe individ të tjerë të cilët nuk përmbushin kriteret profesionale. Bazuar dhe në rekomandimet e ONM-s.
I think it's way too early to say whether the justice reform is fully functioning. Of course, it will take many years to see the final results of that work. What is important is that the beginning of the implementation has started, and we will monitor and scrutinize everything very carefully. We are waiting for the first public hearings when it comes to vetting. We have also witnessed some interesting removals from the judiciary in the past that might be a bit of a reflection on what's going on. So let's be a little bit more patient and let's wait a few more weeks to see what the institutions have to say. But also, you know, this is something that is going to be with Albania, the implementation of justice reform, until the moment you become a full member of the EU, and even after that. Reforms never stop. It's not something that has an expiration date. So I think a bit of patience is also a skill that will have to be infused in the way we look at this process. It took a lot of time for everybody who was in the enlargement process, and it will take time for Albania. But honestly, in the end, you as a citizen will be able to judge. You as a citizen will be able to judge whether the justice reform is functioning or not. I think this is the most important, and you are the most important one who will decide or who will have evidence whether it's working or not. But in terms of the framework, the reform has taken into account all possible hurdles and has created a huge amount of checks and balances so that the system is as independent as possible.
E si nga ekonomi nga raport televizion. Dje kuvendi ka zgjedhur 10 anëtarët e parë për Këshillin e Lartë Gjyqësor atë të prokurorisë me short, pa konsensus, për mbi të gjitha, pa rekomanduar 100% dhe pa reflektuar rekomandimet e operacionit ndërkombëtar të monitorimit. A jeni ju e shqetësuar për këtë çështje?
We have looked at the matter. You know that IMO has different functions. When it comes to the selection of the so-called lay members, IMO had an advisory function. So in their assessment, I think one or two people who have been selecting by lot did not meet formal criteria. And it was a question of interpretation, what constitutes being professor at the law school, for example. So the interpretation of the IMO was different than interpretation of the Parliament or the Secretary General of the Parliament, who has an equal footing when it comes to the determination on the list that was put up for voting. What is unfortunate is that there was no effort put on the side of the political parties to find a solution based on merit. And this is unfortunate, and there were, as you know, there were three opportunities to do that, because the system is designed so that at every new choosing you can either decide as a committee or it goes for a lot. Unfortunately, in the end, it was a lot, but we will see. Let's see how these councils will work. As I said, we will be very attentive. And one thing that you can be sure about, more Albania moves towards the EU, more very, very close and detailed monitoring will be there. And this is, in a way, I always say opening of negotiations is not a gift. Opening of negotiations is a lot of tough work, especially for the government. So this is something that we are looking forward to, an opportunity to be even closer to the process, to have even more possibilities to monitor the process in every single detail, and work to make it better. If that is it, I thank you very much. We will now distribute you the texts of the strategy, also some other infographics with different type of information that might be useful to you. We also will plan to have a separate session, maybe later this week, maybe early next week, on the instruments. It's an extremely important part of the strategy. Please pay attention to what are the upgraded instruments that European Union will offer to the partners in the region. Thank you very much.